When it comes to deciding what you can afford to rent or buy, the internet has a lot of opinions that can make your head spin.
It's now cheaper to rent than it is to buy.
5 to 7 years, maybe buying is for you.
It is not as clear-cut in a lot of markets.
Yeah. Today we're covering how much house you can actually afford buying or renting based on your salary, and chances are, it's not going to be what you expect. So a few months ago, we considered buying a house. We spent hours on Zillow, toured homes, and fell in love with one. But then after running the numbers, we realized that buying a house didn't make any financial sense for us. It's easy to keep compromising financially as you get caught up in the dreams of what your future might look like in a beautiful house. But to make sure that you're making the best decision for your future, you need to be realistic. When you really do the math, things might not add up. When it comes to deciding between renting or buying a house, think of your rent as the maximum amount you'll pay per month and the mortgage payment as the minimum you'll pay. Generally, rent payment is like your usual one-course meal. The same thing every month with no surprises. Property taxes increasing? None of your business. Roof leaking? Call the landlord. Lawn is looking wild? Oh wells. On the other hand, when you take on a mortgage to buy a house, your mortgage payment is just the appetizer. Suddenly, your meal becomes 2, 4, even 9 courses as unexpected expenses pop up. Broken plumbing, malfunctioning heater, or termite infestation you should have noticed before you bought the house. Soon, these costs can add up to tens of thousands of dollars. But that's not to say that buying a home is the wrong move. Homeownership could still be a better financial decision because of a little thing called equity. When you buy a house, you actually own where you live. You're investing in an asset that can appreciate in value over time. So instead of paying rent each month, you're paying that money to your mortgage. As you pay down your mortgage and the value of your house increases, you build equity in the home. As a result, in the future, you'll probably be able to sell your house for a profit. By the way, if you want to build a wealthier and healthier life, sign up for my free weekly newsletter, Rethinkable, link below. But for this to work in your favor, the numbers need to add up. If you overspend, overleverage, or buy in a bad market, you could end up losing a ton of money. So how can you calculate if you should rent or buy? And more importantly, how much can you actually afford? What I did was use this calculator to help me decide if I should buy or rent in New York City. Okay, so the first thing the calculator needs is the home price. The average home price in New York is around $716,000, but from what I've seen, this should be a lot higher, unless you want to live in a rundown shack, but let's just go with the data. Then there's some other personal questions like how long do you plan to live there, what's your mortgage rate, what's your down payment, and what's the length of your mortgage. Next, we need Mr. Magic Lamp to predict one of the most important factors. What is the investment return on this house? Basically, if I invest $140,000 into this house, how much in value will the house go up in the future? For this, I'm pulling up historical annual growth rates for New York City houses, and I see that they historically grow at a rate of 6.1% per year. Of course, this isn't certain or guaranteed, but it's a decent baseline to go with. This is a crucial step because you need to think, if I didn't use the $140,000 to buy this $700,000 house, and instead I invested the $140,000 into the stock market, would my money grow faster or slower? Basically, would I make more money investing in the house or investing in something else? The average annual return for the S&P 500 is about 10% since its inception. So right off the bat, I know historically that the S&P 500 has a higher average return than New York housing. But keep in mind, this doesn't account for equity, cash flow, tax deductions, and other financial benefits from owning a house. From here, we need to add a bunch of different data into the calculator, which I'll be Googling. Average inflation rate, closing and selling cost, any taxes, maintenance, additional fees, renovations, insurance, and HOA. So after inputting everything, the calculator is saying that if I can rent a similar home for less than $4,172 a month, then it's financially better to rent. And having looked myself, I can find quite a few places that are under $4,000 a month, so that makes renting the better decision. Now, you just gotta open up Easy Street, wait 2 hours in line to see the apartment, bid for it, and you've got yourself a beautiful 20 square foot studio with a rat problem. Running these numbers might be more complicated than expected. While it's helpful, there are other easier parameters and strategies you can use to determine how much you can afford to buy or rent. When it comes to renting, the age-old recommendation was to keep your rent below 30% of your gross income. The problem is the 30% rule was a recommendation back in the 1970s, and a lot has changed since then. CDs, cell phones, oh, and the median price for rent is no longer $108 a month. Nowadays, median rent is about $2,000. So let's use 3 example salary ranges to see who can afford this. John makes $35K a year, so he can afford $875 per month in rent. David makes the median income of $70K a year and can afford $1,750. Samantha makes $185K a year and can do $4,626 in rent. So even David, who makes the median income in the US, cannot afford the median price of rent nowadays. Instead, David would have to make about $10,000 more than the median salary, at $80,000, just to afford the median rent. This disparity is worse if you consider rents in higher cost of living areas like New York City, where the median rent nearly doubles to $4,000 a month. In New York, the median income is still about $70,000, meaning they would need to spend about 70% of their income just on rent. The better renting parameter to use is the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of your take-home pay for your needs like housing, food, and utilities, 30% for your wants, vacations, entertainment, and Mr. Magic Lamp, and 20% to your savings. So with the same salaries, but now 50% towards needs, John can afford up to $1,458 per month, David can do up to $2,916, and Samantha can go up to $7,708. Which sounds a lot better. At least median salary David can afford the median price of rent. But remember, the needs categories is split with other necessities like food, internet, and utilities. The greater your other essential expenses, the less you can spend on rent. The beauty of 50-30-20 is that it gives you flexibility and encourages you to look for cheaper alternatives. Premium Netflix or regular, organic free-range guacamole or regular, Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. But if you want to buy a house, there are 2 completely different parameters and strategies to follow. First, the 28-36 rule, which means that your monthly mortgage payment should not be more than 28% of your monthly gross income, including taxes, insurance, and PMI, if you have that. Second, your monthly mortgage payments plus all your debts should be less than 36% of your monthly gross income. The reason we use gross income and not net income or take-home pay is because your take-home pay can vary depending on deductions that you decide to take. So if my gross income is $100,000, but I choose to max out my 401k, HSA, and other things, my take-home pay could be, let's say, $50,000. That would be the same take-home pay as someone whose gross income is $60,000 and doesn't make any deductions. So if take-home pay was used in the calculation, then that would indicate that we can both afford the same house, but that's not true. Because I could always cut back on retirement savings and take more money home, whereas the other person has no wiggle room. So if we apply the same 3 scenarios, John can afford $816 per month for his mortgage and up to $1,050 for all his debt payments, including housing. David can do about $1.6K and $2.1K per month respectively. Samantha can do $4.3K and $5.5K per month respectively. In terms of how much house they can afford with this parameter, assuming a 20% down payment and a 7.15% interest rate, John's max home price is $122K, David's max home price is $260K, and Samantha's max home price is $700K. And if you're shocked that John's median income can only afford a $230,000 house when the median price for a house nowadays is about $436,000, you can thank interest rates. Basically, when interest rates go up, the price of borrowing money goes down, and houses become more expensive. Homebuyers end up paying more in interest, impacting their purchasing power. So if interest rates were at 2.8% instead of 7.15%, David, with his median income, could afford a house nearly twice as much at $400,000. But think of the 28-36 rule like a frozen burger, and the better 30-33 rule like a freshly smashed cheeseburger. 30-33 is broken into 3 parts. First, don't spend more than 30% of your gross income on housing payments, mortgage, insurance, and property taxes. Second, make sure you save at least 30% of the house's price in cash. If your house costs $200,000, save $60,000. Normally, you only need 20% of the house's price in cash as a down payment to avoid PMI or private mortgage insurance. But here's why saving 30% is better. You can either add the extra 10% to the down payment to build more equity in the house from the very beginning and reduce your monthly payments, or an even better option, think of the 10% as an extra buffer for repairs and maintenance. The problem is, most homeowners fail to accurately anticipate all the additional cost. Whether it's a leaky toilet, a moldy floor, or a new rat infestation, these expenses can set you back, so you better be prepared. You might not spend the 10% immediately, but you will spend it eventually. Lastly, the cost of your home should not exceed 3 times your gross annual income. Now, this is flexible depending on where you live. In high cost of living areas like California, 3 times your income can buy you a cardboard box. In Colorado, a decent house. In Louisiana, you can probably buy a mansion and a state politician. But that's only if you can actually get a lender to lend you money. It could be tough to qualify for a good loan with good terms, but here's how you can increase your chances. When it comes to lenders, they determine whether to lend you money based on your DTI or debt to income ratio. Basically, it's a measure of how much debt you have relative to how much income you earn. So if you earn $10,000 a month but have $9,000 in debt payments, your DTI is 90%, which is a bit high. The lower your DTI, the more likely lenders will lend you money. Lenders also look at your expected monthly mortgage payments. Generally, they have to be less than 33% of your monthly income, meaning if you take home $60,000 a year, your monthly mortgage payments should be less than $1,650. The trick to increase your chances of getting a good loan is to focus on 2 things. First, lower your DTI by either increasing your income or paying down your debts, starting with high interest in short-term debts like credit card bills. Next, when buying a house, reduce the cost of items that make up your mortgage payments, like insurance and property taxes. When it comes to paying less for homeowners insurance, avoid neighborhoods where people are more likely to file insurance claims, like if houses commonly get broken into, flooding happens every 2.5 months, or a tornado bulldozes through the neighborhood every other year. Don't be afraid to call a bunch of different homeowner insurance companies to shop around for lower rates. Allstate, Progressive, and State Farm, they would all love to compete against each other to have you as a customer. When it comes to paying less for property taxes, look around different neighborhoods and counties. Open up Zillow and check out the tax history of listings to see their assessed value and how taxes grew over time. Taxes can fluctuate across houses, even in the same county. Alright, so should you buy or rent a house? It's essential to keep in mind that there's an opportunity cost involved with everything. Basically, the money you invest in a house is money not invested in a business, stock market, or some other opportunity. After running the numbers for ourselves, I discovered that it makes more financial sense for us to rent than buy at the moment. In Manhattan, where I'm renting now, there was a place on the other side of the street, very similar size and layout, and if you account for maintenance, taxes, insurance, and other fees, it would have cost me nearly 2 to 3 times more to buy. So let's say the rent here is $3,000 a month. It would have cost $9,000 a month over there. So I decided to take the $6,000 difference and invest it in the stock market instead. For one of the biggest purchases of your life, run the numbers. It's not as simple as buying is always better or renting is always a waste of money. It comes down to your own specific circumstances. But what if I told you your housing expense shouldn't be your biggest worry? Instead, you should be more concerned about the biggest wealth killer that no one is talking about. Click here to learn what that is and how you can save thousands from it every year.